Do you ever find yourself riding along, you're in just the right gear, and then you come to a slight rise, so you decide to change down, then whoa, all of a sudden you're pedaling 20 to the dozen, so you change back up again, and then you're grinding. I think there's nothing worse than those gear holes where you just can't find the right gear. Well, when I say nothing worse, actually anchovies are much worse, and there are many other things that are much worse. But apart from anchovies and all those other things, there's nothing worse than not being able to find the right gear. And I found in the past I can get more useful gears out of a 9-speed setup than a bog standard 11-speed setup. Which is why, until now, I stuck with 9-speed. Well, that and that 9-speed is much cheaper.
However, I've just purchased an 11-speed gear system that's good value. So here I'm going to look to see how I can benefit from those extra gears. I'll examine gearing theory through charts that look like this, where I have the number of teeth on the chainring down the left-hand side and a number of teeth on each of the cassette sprockets along the top. Within the table, I've expressed the size of the gear in gear inches, and there's also a number that represents the size of the step between each of those gears. I like to go from a gear of about 30 inches up to about 95 inches and limit the size of the jumps between each of the gears to 8% or less. Let's start off by looking at my current bikes. This table represents the gears on my touring bike. This gives me a gear range of 26 inches up to 87. Now those gears are fine for touring. However, this is a bit low for more general riding, and at the top end I sometimes find this not quite high enough. The issue I have with this is in the centre of the cassette, where I spend most of my time. The steps are somewhat larger than 8%, which I don't like very much. Let's look at the gears that I have on my carbon fibre road bike. This gives me a range of gears from 38 inches up to 96 inches. This I find quite a nice range for general purpose riding. More importantly, the steps between most of the gears, particularly at the higher end, are less than 8%. Let's move on and look at a bog standard 11-speed setup. I'm going to be looking at 46 and 30 teeth on the chain rings, and I'm considering a cassette from 30 down to 11 teeth. This gives a range from 27 inches up to a high gear of 113 inches. This is much higher than I need. The 12 sprocket is also higher. I probably only need to go up to a 13 sprocket, which will give me a gear ratio of about 96 inches. Again, some of those gear steps in the centre of the cassette well exceed 8%. Let's move on and see how I might modify the previous cassette to give me the gear ratios that I want. So again, this is an 11-speed cassette with 46 and 30 chain rings. Again, going from 30 teeth down to, this time, 13 teeth. This gives me a range of 27 gear inches up to 96 gear inches. Perfect, I think. Also, the steps between the gears are less than 8%, apart from when I get to this region here. I've got a 10% jump here between the 19 and 21 sprocket, and I would ideally like to reduce that. Unfortunately, I've been unable to find a 22 sprocket, so I'm going to have to live with that. But otherwise, this gearing setup looks ideal for what I want. I'll just again refer to this 32 sprocket, which gives me an 18% jump. However, as I'm considering the 30 sprocket to be effectively an emergency gear, I'm happy with that.
This is all very well in theory, but can I build a cassette with the gear ratios that I've decided I want?
In my next video, I'll look at how I actually modified a cassette to get those gear ratios. Until that next video, it's goodbye from me.
Well, that's all very well in theory, but the important question is, will coffee and cake help? No, probably not, but it's worth finding out.